Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
It is time for our Outdoor Tidbits with Mr. Jake Bolks, who is joining us here this morning. First of all, Jake, how did the duck hunting go last week for you?
Pretty good.
Yeah?
It was a pretty fun time, so I can't complain.
Attaboy. All right. Well, make sure you share some of the helpings with Bob and I over here whenever you get that taken care of.
Yeah.
So,
Who cleans your ducks for you?
I get my mom to do that.
That's awesome.
No, I'm kidding. No, I take care of that.
How hard? I've never done it. How hard is it to pluck a duck?
Plucking a duck ain't too bad, actually. You know, it depends, if you're going to just breast them out, if you're going to take the whole thing. If you get them right, after you're done hunting, they're still pretty malleable where you can do a lot of the work with just your hands. I was talking with a buddy after we were duck hunting and plucking some of them actually we were talking about doing it for turkey and, getting a full turkey and deep frying it for Thanksgiving and stuff. And I did that once when I was a kid, and that's a whole other process of plucking out a turkey carcass and such.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Hey, kind of
takes a little bit longer than a duck.
Yeah. Speaking a little bit of that, but with deer, I know our good friends from Mike's Star Market, they had reached out and they said, next time you talk to Jake, can you mention this? But because Mike's Star Market, they're also a deer donation site, correct?
Right. Yeah, they're the only one in the kind of the Chippewa Valley, or even things like this part of the state. I haven't looked at the list every year; it's a little bit different. But Mike's has been the only one consistently in the program, which is awesome. So, if you're not familiar with that deer donation program, basically they work with the DNR that if you bring in a deer, they will, for whatever reason you don't want it or you want to shoot one just to donate it, you can bring a deer in there for free, drop it off. And they'll process it and get it out to people that need it and stuff like that.
So big thanks to our friends at Mike's Star Market for, especially if they are the only ones in our area to do that too.
They are. Yep. Sometimes when we seize deer, I brought deer in there, so they get brought to a good donation and stuff like that. So It's a good service they do, and it's definitely appreciated. So if you ever want to harvest a deer, but you don't know what to do with it, or your freezer's full, or you don't eat deer, or whatever the case may be, definitely look into that deer donation program and maybe drop one off there for them.
Especially with rifle season already coming up here next month, just a few weeks away. Holy moly!
Just a few weeks away. Yeah, and kind of on that, on the deer note, since we're there, everyone kind of wonders or asks what to do with their deer once they've harvested them and processed them, if they do it on their own. And as of a couple weeks ago, the deer dumpsters were put out at a lot of the DNR service centers or buildings in the area. So Cornell has a deer dumpster. The Eau Claire Service Center on Claremont has a deer dumpster. The DNR Service Center or field office in Menominee at the Brickyard has a deer dumpster. So those are just giant, roll-off dumpsters where it's free to bring your scraps and whatever deer you need disposed of properly to bring them there, so you're not dumping them in ditches or littering them on the roadways or whatever the case may be.
Because is that illegal, Jake, to just dump them in ditches or like public lands and that?
It is, yeah. So the littering law in Wisconsin is pretty black and white, or pretty basic. It's if you deposit any sort of material that's on any public highways, public waterways, or private property without permission, no matter what that material is, if you deposit it up in your own property, it's littering, and those tickets range anywhere from $200 to over $1,000. So yeah, you can't just take, even though animals will eat at it or this or that, you can't just go dump deer off at the end of a dead end road. A lot of times, the most frustrating part of it for a lot of people is just like, yeah, it makes sense. A scavenger's going to eat that up. But at the end of those dead-end roads, it's somebody's private property where they might be walking their dogs, or it's a hunting area where dogs are coming out, or people, or you got to smell it. So it's not just about, dropping off and going. Other people are going to have to deal with that dead animal through the fall.
Mm-hmm.
How big a problem is that, Jake? Because it doesn't sound good. I mean, your deer dumpster, you think you're wasting it, but for the ends and the hooves and things like that, how big a problem is it that people are throwing that stuff around?
It's probably one of the most common complaints we get in the fall. Actually, is deer carcass littering. Because a lot of people wake up one morning and there's dead deer parts in their ditch by their driveway or by their mailbox or at their most common hunting spot, and now their dog comes back with a rotting deer leg and stuff. So obviously, the deer dumpster, we don't want, myself personally, you don't want to waste any food. So obviously, if you're going to process, get as much meat off that thing as you can. Use the hide if you want. But when you get those scraps or you get to the parts that you can't use, bring them to that dumpster. It's free, and it's an easy way to, I guess, kind of keep yourself out of getting in trouble, but kind of being a good sportsman as well.
How much are the hides worth? Are there much demand for deer hides? I know, people will make gloves and vests and.
Yeah, I haven't heard a lot of high demand for it. I mean, they still get utilized. I don't think a lot of places. I know that you can still bring in hide, and they'll give you a free pair of gloves or something like that. If you do bring them at least to the Eau Claire office, they do have a spot where you can dump the hides there as well. And they just take those funds, and I don't know how much they're getting for them, $5 or a couple bucks, I'm not sure, but they can bring them in, and then they take all the proceeds from those from those hides to put towards funding those deer carcass dumpsters. So if you do, if you are bringing it to throw it away anyways, maybe try to set that hide aside so it can go back towards funding that program.
Mm-hmm. Jake, a quick question just came in. I know we've answered this before, but it's a good reminder. Texter says, when you're out bow hunting for whitetail, can you bring a shotgun or rifle with either to shoot a turkey or other game in season?
The short answer is yes, you can do that as long as you have all your licenses for that other, you have all the licenses for that other species. It's in season. It's in shooting hours, and stuff like that. And there's no restrictions on carrying, the bow for whatever reason, or the gun in an area where you're not supposed to have guns or something like that. So as long as, if you look at it holistically, and that you could, if you could be in that spot doing both those activities, at the same time, anyways, you can combine them. Yes. Don't get offended if the game warden questions you a little bit further than just, hey, how's it going? Mm-hmm. If you come out bow hunting with a shotgun on your slinged on your back or something like that, don't get offended, because we wouldn't be doing our job if that didn't, raise a red flag or kind of intrigue you. Like, what are you doing with that thing?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's definitely something you can do. You obviously want to think about the safety aspect of it, carrying around a gun and a bow and climbing and walking and this and that. But there's nothing that says you can't. Just be mindful of the optics of it and the safety of it.
Speaking of, shotguns and that, the pheasant season just opened up. Was it last week or a week or so ago?
Yeah, the 19th, so that would have been last Saturday.
Okay.
So, last Saturday, talked with a lot of hunters about it, actually. I hear a lot of good stuff, a lot of people shooting a lot of birds. Obviously, a lot of them in the state are stocked and whatnot, but still there's still some naturally reproducing ones here and there. But a lot of people shot at least a bird opening day, or at least through the opening weekend there, and sounds like it was a good time. So, yeah, that season's in full effect now all the way through kind of the beginning of January time frame.
Can you, just off the top of my head, for that, is like road hunting for that? I know when we talk about deer hunting, you got to be a certain amount of yardages off the road and such. What about when it comes to like pheasant hunting? If I'm driving down and I see one on the road, can I jump out and take my shot?
I hope I'm not coming the other way when you're doing that.
Again, there are some legal aspects of that, but again, don't get offended if a game warden comes ripping on you with lights and sirens and questioning what you're doing. So, so when it comes to guns, at no point can there ever be a loaded gun or like a loaded crossbow which is like a bolt in your cock crossbow and stuff like. At no point can you ever have any loaded firearms, weapons, anything in your vehicle. The second rule that would apply in that situation is that generally, like deer, you cannot hunt within 50 feet of the road center. It's any road, like a dirt road or anything, or discharge within 50 feet of the road center. Now, the little legal aspect, the little exemption that seems to exist in everything, the one exemption is that they call it the gravel road exemption, whereas if you're hunting small game, if you're using shot size smaller than size 4, if you're along like a public hunting area or your private land or land with consent on each side, then you could potentially shoot a pheasant off the road if you hit all those parameters. Gravel roads, the right kind of ammo, the right permission, all that kind of stuff. Usually, that to get all those parameters together at the right moment to have a bird out there is very rare. There's usually some sort of violation with it. Not saying that someone couldn't do it, but you just have to be careful when you're doing it if you're going that way. What we always encourage, obviously, for safety and stuff like that, is to get out, in the grass, in the woods, and hunt down those species that way.
If I'm good with a slingshot, could I use a slingshot? I'm just kidding.
Actually, I mean, a lot of stuff you can't because it's not considered
Really?
one of yeah. So there's different things you could potentially use it for, but for a lot of stuff, actually, like you couldn't use it on like a deer or this or that because they define that you have to use some sort of firearm or a bow.
Gotcha. Go ahead, Bob. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. I just thinking about all this, going to deer hunting, and I think you talked about this before, Jake. It's been brought up, but when you hunt and, deer hunting, a lot of driving, 6-8 guys drive a woods, and you get down to the other end and somebody comes to pick you up and all of a sudden the guy says, I forgot all your gun cases. Now, is the law been, because years ago you had to have a gun case.
Right.
Now, did I hear you say recently or one of the programs we've been with you that as long as you unload the gun, it doesn't have to be cased to go back to where your car is?
Right.
Or is that law has changed now, right?
No, yeah, you're right on with that. We probably talked about it a little bit last year leading up to the season. So it was right about a little bit before I got hired, so a little bit over a decade ago, where they changed the law where you do not have to have a cased gun anymore at any time in a vehicle. Whether that's in the act of hunting or just transporting it or whatnot. You could buy a gun at the store, never buy a case, go hunting, go on drives, whatever. You don't have to case a gun. Now, again, we always kind of default back to the safety aspect because if you put it in, a case, then you're probably more likely making sure it's unloaded and it's going to protect your gun better and stuff like that. So we encourage you to case it. But, nope, you don't have to case it. The main thing is if you're in any vehicle, any motor vehicle, including ATVs, boats, whatnot, is that when those vehicles when you bring it inside and when it's in motion, you have to have the guns unloaded. So if, at least drop out the clip or the mag, and take one out of the chamber. Some people keep the loaded magazine still in their gun, and that is a loaded firearm. And I was actually reading through the rigs yesterday about that. And it explains it very well in our hunting rigs this year. So make sure you just take all the ammo out of that gun and totally separate it like you're supposed to separate it when you store them at home.
So we can look like we're in Texas. They hang all those rifles and shotguns in their back window of their pickup trucks on racks.
Heck yeah, you could do that. I have seen a lot more of like the seat covers that sling over the back.
Yeah.
Like a holder on each side so
Yep.
you can kind of slide it back and forth. And I honestly don't really hate that idea, except for my dog would always run into the gun at the top. But it's you don't have to have them cased.
Hey, last question, Jake. This came through our texting line here quick. If you have your concealed carry, can you carry a sidearm for protection while bow hunting?
Yes.
Okay.
And you can actually, even if you don't have your concealed carry, you could legally carry a handgun for protection while bow hunting if it's open carried too. So the CCW, the concealed carry permit, allows you to put that, within your waistband or put it on your hip and then put a jacket over it. So anytime you're putting like a winter jacket or your blaze orange over a handgun, you have to have your CCW. If you don't have it, you can still bring it out for safety purposes or whatnot, but you have to strap it on the outside of whatever clothing you're wearing.
Good stuff there, Jake. A lot of good stuff here, and I know Jake's going to be joining us in studio here in a couple weeks.
Oh, bring a sample of duck in.
I will.
I haven't eaten duck. I haven't eaten duck in a long time. Is it
duck
still?
Is
it greasy? As people say, it's greasy. I haven't eaten duck in a long time.
No, it's just how you cook it. But but I'll bring you some coot in. Everyone loves coot. I'll bring you that.
There you go.
Coot. No, that sounds like something from the hills of Tennessee.
Get some crane. It's the ribeye of the sky.
No, I'm all in now.
I gotta try that myself.
Yeah. Jake, hey, we appreciate it, buddy. Be safe, and we'll catch up with you again next week, okay, bud?